So as I mentioned, a couple of games this week. Football under the lights. It's not for everybody. But midweek football is back this week. Chelsea are the visitors to St Mary's. Alfie, I read your piece today. You used the C word, crisis, I think, with the key suspensions. We've got Harwood-Bellis, Downs and Dibbling all suspended. This is going to be the toughest starting 11 that you're going to have to try and predict.
Yeah, well, I mean, it may be a little bit easier in the sense of there aren't many options in a lot of positions. And I'll read out the full list of people who are unavailable. So obviously Aaron Ramsdale, Gavin Bazunu, Harwood-Bellis, Bednarek, Larios, Downs, Yuga Chukwu, who can't face Chelsea, he's on loan, Adam Lallana, Dibbling, Ross Stewart, and potentially McCarthy, Smallbone, Amo-Ameyaw as well. So that's potentially 13 players missing. Glen's already sort of mentioned the fact that 6 of those are in the best 11 without question.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a bit of a patch-up job. And I'd sort of try to have a bit of a guess about what the team might look like. And, I've come up with Lumley, a back five of Sugawara, James Bree, Jack Stevens, Carl Walker-Peters and Ryan Fraser. So that's Walker-Peters and Bree sort of playing centre-back. Then Ryan Manning in midfield, Joe Rebo, Matty Fernandez, and obviously Cameron Archer and Adam Armstrong up front if Amo-Ameyaw's not ready. So, that team, as Glen said earlier, it is a championship team. It's probably a team that, bar a couple of players, wouldn't get out of the championship. But they have the benefit of sort of, they at least they know each other, they play each other. There'll be some synergy there. And there's guys like James Bree who could come in and on his cut performances, he deserves a chance. So he should be fairly confident. Ryan Fraser would have been 48 hours ago would have been like an absolute nightmare, but he played all right against Brighton. So can you take some solace there? And then obviously Ryan Manning has played in midfield in pre-season and maybe once I think this season or in Swansea team. So he has done it before. But it is asking a lot, isn't it, of everybody there? It's asking a lot of everybody there. And I don't think there's going to be anybody in that stadium who expects them to get a result. They're going to have a back four of three full-backs, a centre-back and a winger, back five. So, yeah, good luck.
That might be the understatement of the week. We'll get on to Ugo Chukwu in just a moment and his antics this week. Glen, it's difficult, isn't it, when Alfie's rattling through that side to think that this is going to be anything other than a bit of a pasting.
Yeah, I mean we've got, in my opinion, and this is up for debate. Yeah, probably 7 players who are decent at Premier League level, and 5 of them are missing. So you really only got Walker-Peters and Fernandez as people who have proven to be good enough at this level. So. And as Alfie says, we're going to be bringing in the likes of James Bree, who, yeah, I mean, he's played well in the Carabao Cup, but I mean,
top scorer, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, but we're talking about Everton reserves, Stoke reserves, and Cardiff youth team, aren't we? That's who we played in the Carabao Cup. So, and I watched Chelsea play earlier on today against Villa, and their midfield. We're talking about putting Ryan Manning in midfield. Their midfield is Enzo Fernandez, 100 million quid, Casado, 100 million quid, and Romeo Lavia, 50 million quid. That was the 3 they had in midfield. So good luck, Ryan Manning, and whoever else plays in there. So it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible to look at, and you can't imagine. Chelsea have got this, and we're going to talk about Villa in a minute, and the fact that they've got European football to deal with. Chelsea have as well, but it's the Conference League, and they could put their youth team in it and win that. Chelsea aren't going to be resting anyone, I wouldn't have thought, for this particular game. So, the likes of, Cole Palmer, Madueke, Sancho, Neto. I mean, it's just
Nicholas Jackson.
Nicholas Jackson, who we were allegedly linked with a while ago. He's a funny player, a little bit hit and miss, but he's scoring a lot of goals this season. So the annoying thing is that Maresca, it's just one of these characters I find really annoying. But he's getting a good tune out of that squad at the moment. Mind you, I feel like I could probably do that, but fair enough.
No, to be fair, we all had Chelsea down and struggling this season, didn't we? Let's be honest. With 30 players and not really knowing what their team was, all of a sudden they come to St Mary's with a very clear first 11 and a very clear sort of backup for each position.
Has it surprised you, Alfie, that he's managed to do that and how quickly he's got them firing?
I think I was thinking about this earlier today because sort of like based on the Leicester teams that came to St Mary's and that we saw at King Power, clearly he was a good manager and Saints got absolutely battered by them twice. But it felt like the Leicester fans were never really satisfied with him. Like, I guess by the point of lifting the title, they were. But it felt like throughout the season, they weren't massive fans. I don't know if that was just because it wasn't the most entertaining, or I don't know what it was really. But I mean, it's a massive job. Yeah, I'm surprised. He's done unbelievably well, Enzo Maresca. You have to take your hats off, because he's going to finish in the top 4 with a squad I thought was going to finish 8th or 9th. So,
I think they're the second best team around at the moment outside of Liverpool.
Yeah,
they're better than City at the moment, and they're certainly better than the other big boys. So to me, if the league table carries on, or the rest of the season pans out the way it's looking at the moment, they'll finish second. They're a good side.
Our score prediction is going to be interesting for this one. Martin, obviously, Ugochukwu is going to be ineligible to face his parent club, but it seems that he's had a busy week on his social media after not making the squad.
Yeah, didn't all his social media Southampton posts disappear, then reappear? Bit strange.
Has he put them back on now?
They're back on.
I think he's put them back on now. Yeah, he's put them back on.
One of those players who's more interested in his social media than he is about his performances.
Yeah, he needs to focus on his performances, because when I've seen him, I've been desperately disappointed in him. I've got to be honest. I thought he looked all right at the start, but maybe a little bit of an attitude problem there from what I've seen. It's nice to see Che Charles, the man that he's replaced, out at Sheffield Wednesday, absolutely blossoming in the Championship. He's been magnificent for them. Every Sheffield Wednesday fan I speak to said that he has been brilliant. So at least we're going to have a really good midfielder next season when we're back in the Championship with Che Charles, because I didn't think he got the chances that he deserved last year, and we didn't trust him anywhere near enough. I think it's an uphill battle against Chelsea. Centre-back would be interesting. A few people keep asking me, I've had a lot of DMs about it, is Charlie Taylor. He's nowhere to be seen. Somebody that can play centre-back, strong lad. He's got a bit about him. He was in and out the side. Totally disappeared. Do we know it? What's happened to him?
So he played a game for the 21s and then came off at half-time with a bit of a niggly injury. But since then, he's just not being picked for not being rated reasons. So I asked Russell Martin about it, and he said that we've changed shape to this sort of 5 at the back, and it doesn't suit him. Basically, he's been a victim of that, and he's just got to be ready to come back in when we need him. So it's one of those sort of Russell Martin exclusions where he's definitely in there with the he's honourable mention. Sort of Nathan Wood could come in on Wednesday, definitely, and Charlie Taylor's in there as well. He could definitely come in instead of James Bree, sort of that left centre back role. But it's just one of those where with Russell, he does this with players, and they don't come back in for a while. And you sort of wonder where they are. But yeah, he just has tactical reasons.
He's got the experience, Glenn, though, hasn't he? That's why he was signed.
Yeah. And when we signed him, it was one of those ones where it was a free transfer, so it wasn't costing a hell of a lot of money. Obviously the wages you got to pay, but it wasn't a signing to get anyone excited, but it was like, this is a proven Premier League player who can slot in, and we didn't really have an out and out left back, because the assumption was that Ryan Manning would be good enough to play in the Premier League. So
the assumption on Ryan Manning was that he might leave as well in the summer. They were sort of thinking he would probably leave the club, but it never ended up happening. So it was like a ready-made replacement in advance. Yeah,
and Dyche's Burnley were a solid team, and he's a solid defender. He played 8 years in the Premier League, so he's not that old. He's only 30, I think. So. Yeah, you would think in this sort of scenario we're in at the bottom of the league with an injury and suspension crisis, he would certainly play on Wednesday. But if he doesn't, then it does kind of point that there's something else going on.
Well, his last appearance was that Leicester game, I believe. So I think there's been a couple who haven't really featured.
A player called out then.
No, I don't actually. I asked the people at the club, a couple of people at the club, this, and they don't know the answer for sure, obviously, because Russell Martin only knows who he's talking about in his own head. But I don't think that he was the one who was called out. But look, we don't know, do we? But I'm pretty sure it wasn't him.
Do you mind, Alfie, before we do score predictions, can you just clear up about the loans? Because there's been a lot of stuff that I've read this week about the loans, and we'll just cancel their loan in January and send them back, and we'll get somebody else in. But it's not quite as simple as that.
No, so it's normal practice with the loans. I believe it is in these two cases as well, that if you agree to a season-long loan, you can only get out of that if the club and the player agrees as well. So we had this case with Mason Holgate in January last year. They knew that they didn't need Mason because they had enough options in that position. from the 1st of January, but they had to wait until deadline day before another club, Sheffield United, agreed to take him on, and that went brilliantly well. So the problem is that's going to be the same case again this season. If they want to lose Leslie Ugochukwu or Maxwell Cornet, then West Ham and Chelsea will have to agree to that, and the players will have to agree to that as well. So, if they're not playing at all, then the players are going to be happy, but the club are going to want the wages covered and whatever fees are paying covered as well. So, particularly in the case of someone like Maxwell Cornet, I think Ugochukwu could still be useful to Southampton. I know that you were quite scathing on him there, Martin, and he has been poor, but he looked better in the Liverpool game, and at least he's in a position where they need him. Maxwell Cornet, they don't need Maxwell Cornet. They've got 5 options who are similar to him. Whereas at least with Leslie, it's like if Downs isn't available, he actually could be someone who comes straight in. So if I was the club, I think Russell Martin said to me they're going to assess Maxwell's game time over the next 4 weeks, and then the suggestion was they'll try and negotiate a deal to get him back. And I think that's sensible because you've only got 2 loan slots, and if someone like Evan Ferguson comes available, although that turned out to be bogus, someone like that comes available, they're going to be much more useful than Cornet. I think signing him in the first place was. It was on deadline day. I mean, he was literally signed an hour after the deadline, so it was as last minute as it could be. I think they felt like they needed a different profile, and if he could be fit, he could be useful. He came in with a minor sort of calf injury, and I guess he just hasn't bounced back really. He hasn't been useful, so that one hasn't worked.
We're back to poor recruitment again, aren't we? We need to move on and talk about the Villa game. Before we do that, let's do some score predictions. Let's pluck some numbers out of the air. Martin, would you like the honour of going first whilst Glen does his sums?
Well, I remember the 6-0 really well under Ralph Hasenhüttl.
Oh, God.
When Thomas Tuchel was the manager, wasn't he, at Chelsea that day, the New England manager, that actually tore us to bits that day. I don't think it'd be that heavy. I go 3-0. I don't think we'll score. I go 3-0 Chelsea for this one.
3-0. Glen?
It's funny you mentioned that 6-0. That game was actually, for me, worse than the 9-0 against or either of the 9-0s. Because that game, Chelsea could have scored 15. Mm-hmm. That was so bad.
Was that when Timo Werner would just trip over the ball every single time he got it?
Yeah, I think he hit the post from 3 yards twice in the first 5 minutes, and Ralph was wandering up and down thinking, do I need to change this? No.
Great days.
And then he did nothing, and then within 20 minutes we were 2-0 down and it was dead. And it was awful. And the other thing I remember about that game is Mason Mount. Yeah, because obviously he's from Portsmouth, giving it the big one. Glad to see his career's gone the way it deserved to go in the last couple of years. But anyway, moving on. Wednesday, I can't, like Martin, I can't see a score in it. It's just pick a number that you think Chelsea will go for. So I feel exactly the same as Martin. I don't see any reason to say anything different. I'll say 3-0 Chelsea as well.
3-0. Alfie, do you want to mix it up? Do you think we'll get a goal at least?
Yeah, the problem is I want to go 4-0 just because I don't want to go 3 as well. And it won't, I think, more than 2. But Southampton, I don't know, this season, since the Bournemouth game, the one thing that I really do give credit to them for, and we're clutching at straws a little bit, right? But they don't, Glenn mentioned it the other week, they don't go under, they don't get hammered, they don't sort of lose their way in games. Like they could have been sort of 3 or 4-0 down at Brighton, and yet they still sort of came back and they didn't get swallowed alive at any point. So I just wonder, what that counts for. And you look at the games at Liverpool, the best team to give Liverpool a game in the last sort of 5 or 6 they've had, really tough games. Man City, right, the 1-0 defeat to Man City looks bad now. Probably should have beat them 2 or 3-0. But even Arsenal, they went up against Arsenal. But I don't know. I wonder if it's 5 changes too many this on Wednesday, and the quality is going to show. So I will go for a 4-0 for Chelsea.